and we need to make sure we're mentioning Dalvin Cook's name at least once in the podcast because it'd be blasphemy to not be doing so. They ended up just dominating in the running game. Dalvin Cook, 22 carries for 206 yards with 2 touchdowns. One of the big touchdowns coming off a 70-yard run in the second half. He also had 2 receptions for 46 yards. Obviously, Kirk Cousins benefited greatly by having a weapon like Dalvin Cook back there. The defense had to respect the run. They were not able to stop him, allowing Cousins to really get much time as he wanted to pass the ball. Kirk Cousins would have something like 220 yards passing, which is pretty impressive, and 3 touchdowns. A lot of it from short field advantage, a lot of it from Dalvin Cook running up and down between the 20s to set them up for red zone throws. So you got to give it to him. Kirk Cousins doing a great job at least completing those passes when it needed to be done. But my Lord, Dalvin Cook was a man on a mission that game.
Welcome to the ChadBurn Show, brought to you by M. Chad Baldwin.
Hello and welcome to the ChadBurn Show. I am your host, ChadBurn, and we are back at it for episode number 57 of the ChadBurn Show. Happy to be back on the mic to discuss really basically the NFL Week 9, the crazy things we saw, the close games, the blowout games that occurred, especially last night on Sunday night between the Saints and the Buccaneers, but we will get into that more later. And as well to cover the news that the NBA will be coming back this year in 2020. We'll be starting around Christmas time to kind of go over the details of that and what that entails. But really, I will say one thing, and I know that we will not make this political show, but obviously politics fall into sports, as we've seen with Black Lives Matter, the protest by the NBA, the protest by the NFL, the players in there, the kneeling from Kaepernick that has been pushed and polarized throughout the media and throughout American society from all the way back when we first started to now. The impact sports has had to create a conversation around in politics and in the United States is important to bring it up. So I will say, we obviously now I've all heard the news on major networks, including Fox has now released it, NBC, CBS, the Associated Press, the Edison Foundation, and so on. And that is that Joe Biden is our president of the United States. It's been a long, hard battle. I know for many people out there, this could be a disappointment right now. I know the feeling. I know when your candidate doesn't win, how it feels, how to act bitter, how we are sore losers, because especially for us in the sports world, we are competitive people and we put our all behind everything, whether it is our candidate, whether it's trying to get the right votes, whether it is your local candidate, your Senate candidate, the presidential candidate that you align with, that you see and that you believe holds your views. You want that person to win, and when they do not, it is a bitter pill to swallow. We all know that, but right now it is a time for us to get back together. It's about time to get back into what is the United States. We no longer have to worry about campaigns. We no longer have to worry about debates. We don't have to worry about any of that shit now. Now we can go back to just fucking pure, unadulterated sports content. We can talk about everything else. We can look at how this can impact our society, how sports are going to continue to grow and continue to have more of a meaning to the youth that are growing up and to all of us involved in this. So I'm excited that this is done. I'm excited that Biden is our president. I know that's my personal belief, but I think it's incredible. This election has been insane to see the turnout, to see the numbers on both sides of the aisle, how much people turned out. It's great to see because, for one, as an American living abroad, a long debate I've had to have a lot of people is, why do Americans not vote more? Why are there not more Americans involved in our electoral process? And a lot of times I say it's because they just don't feel that their vote counts. But as we saw in this election with states being very close, it is obvious that every vote matters, and it is beautiful to see that when people go out, they can have their voice heard, and it is actually possible to have tiny margins and have your singular vote be a big difference in these states. So I congratulate and applaud everyone out there for going out to vote, no matter who you voted for. It was quite impressive to see and to show again throughout the world that democracy is strong in the United States, that the United States stands by their vote, and that they stand by the results of the democracy. And no matter, we won't get into it, no matter if someone tries to undermine that process, the fact of the matter is, then it stands that the democracy in the United States is strong, and that the voices of the American people have been heard loud and clear, twice actually, since popular vote has gone this way again. As we turn to the NFL, in Week 9, it seemed that the NFL had finally been restabilized after a crazy Week 8 where we saw several dramatic comebacks and major upsets. Week 9 seemed to go back to chalk with expected winners coming out on top. However, there was still plenty of excitement as games stayed close to the end and came down to the wire and to the final plays, with many instances of teams, finally coming out top late in the fourth quarter. But first up, we got to hit some of those games that were amazing. Obviously, like we said, the main winners came out coming through strong, but there were just explosive plays, incredible high scores, and incredible play by some of the top players in this league. So the first game that I want to highlight, obviously, is the Seahawks-Bills, the one where it didn't necessarily go chalk. In this game, the Bills came out on top 44-34. It was absolutely insane because the Bills, the Buffalo Bills, after several, I would say, uninspiring weeks of football, they came out to play. Josh Allen has appeared to come back to earth, it seemed, in the last few weeks, since it seemed to look to be, again, like a growing young quarterback who's still figuring it out, who has a lot of talent, a lot of promise, but is still trying to figure out his game in this league. That all went away, and we saw the first few weeks of Josh Allen come back to this week, where Josh Allen was just incredible. Josh Allen would go 31 for 38 with 415 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a 14 yards rushing and 1 TD rushing in. It was incredible. Stephon Diggs benefited the most from Josh Allen's incredible performance, going for 9 receptions for 118 yards. It was important that Josh Allen had an incredible game like this and came back to the form he was seeing in the earlier season because, of course, he was across the field from Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks, who have been able to show that no matter the score, no matter how much they down, they can always come back. So you knew that in this situation, if you're the Buffalo's defense, if you're Josh Allen on the offense, the offense needed to score a lot. You needed to get up, you need to keep scoring in order to make sure that the Seahawks had to keep passing and couldn't always rely on the run game and had to be uncomfortable throughout the whole game. And 2, if you're the defense, you knew that you could not stop Russell Wilson, but you could try and slow him down. And that's what they tried to do. Because when you look at the stat line, Russell Wilson went 28 for 41, 390 yards, almost throwing 400 yards and catching Josh Allen with 2 touchdowns. But Russell Wilson had 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles late in the game. The Bills' defense made sure they did everything they could, and with the 2 picks and the 2 strip sacks, the Bills were coming after Wilson and giving them everything they had. The Bills end up getting, going off with a hot start, I should say, because obviously they needed to get that lead early. They did have a 17-0 lead in the first quarter, but Seattle kept clawing back, and later in the third quarter, you saw it was a 27-20 game. So you thought there's a chance Seattle can do it. While the Bills are continuing to hold them off with their defense, Josh Allen is scoring. Maybe Seattle can do it. Unfortunately, that started going away because the Bills would end up scoring 3 more times, 2 touchdowns and a field goal, to make it a 44-34 game. And Seattle, no matter how close they were able to get to at the end, it just wasn't enough. It really wasn't. You could tell the Bills' defense was not going to allow Russell Wilson to be comfortable that entire game. Russell Wilson could do everything he wanted, but also on the other side of the ball, if Russell Wilson is performing, his defense also needs to be able to slow down their opponents, and they could do none of that. The Seattle defense looked exposed. It looked like they could not handle the pass game. They were not able to get pressure on Josh Allen. They weren't able to make a young quarterback who, while still playing amazing, is prone to making mistakes. They could not force him into those mistakes. And I know we saw Pete Carroll got an extension for the Seattle Seahawks on his contract. He's a great coach. He's shown that he can really develop the offense and he can make a potent offense in the NFL. But they need to get their defense together because right now they are struggling. And you cannot give up 44 points and expect to win. No matter what team you are, if they're the Seattle Seahawks, 44 points, you're not going to come back and win this game. Because, the Seattle still scored 34 points. In most games, that's enough to win it outright for you. But in this situation, it wasn't. The Bills are incredible. They look like a fast offense. They can score a lot of points. It was a matchup that I thought would create great television, but I did not think that it was going to create a win for them. I thought the Seattle Seahawks were definitely the better team coming into this matchup. but got to hand it to him. Got to hand it to McDermott, who planned out a great game. They really forced Seattle to become one-dimensional. They stuffed the run. They did not allow the run to get going. Personally, I have following DJ Dallas, obviously, on fantasy football. You could see, he was able to get a touchdown, but the numbers weren't there. The total yardage for them on the running side of the ball was just not able to get there. And so, obviously, the Bills got comfortable. They created a one-dimensional game and just focused on the passing. And, Russell Wilson's going to get his yards, but at least if you can hold him out of the end zone, force some touchdowns to be field goals, and just turn over the ball here and there and then score on those turnovers, you are going to succeed. And that's what the Bills did. It was a great formula. It showed how a team can come back against a great team like the Seahawks. So kudos to the Bills. Again, that score being 44-34, Bills over the Seahawks. The next game I wanted to get into for Week 9 in the NFL was the Panthers versus the Chiefs. Another one where you assume the Chiefs were going to be able to handle this one outright with no real contest from the opponent, but the Carolina Panthers were not here to mess around. The Chiefs ended up winning this game 33-31, but while the score looked kind of, it looked, obviously one-sided, the Panthers made a hell of a match out of it. Patrick Mahomes, obviously 30 for 45 with 372 yards and 4 touchdowns, with Kelsey being the recipient of most of the yards with 159 yards off 10 receptions. Tyreek Hill would end up also throwing on 2 touchdowns on top of that. So getting 2 of the 4 TDs thrown by Patrick Mahomes was to Kelsey. On the other side, Teddy Bridgewater, 36 for 49, 310 yards and 2 touchdowns. I believe he also rushed in a touchdown to make it 3 total touchdowns. For the Carolina Panthers, the big change for him was having CMC back, Christian McCaffrey back in the running back position. He only got 69 yards off 18 carries, but again, he's coming off an injury. He was able to get big chunks all the time, so while he wasn't able to get the big play, he was getting 10 yards, 7 to 10 yards on a lot of his runs. It was impressive. He did get 1 touchdown, so he's getting back into it. I expect to see a lot more out of CMC as the season goes on. Now that he's back into the groove, and now he can play for this team that is really well designed for him with Teddy Bridgewater there as well. Carolina jumped out early with a solid lead in the second quarter, making it a 14-6 game. You thought, obviously, that's not enough of a lead in order to really quell and hold back the Chiefs, but you were at least excited if you're a Carolina Panthers fan to be up late in the second because going into the second half it's going to be a battle. The Chiefs would end up battling back to get it close in the game because the Carolina Panthers would score a field goal. The Chiefs would score a touchdown off a pass to Demarcus Robinson from Patrick Mahomes. It was 17-13 at the half with Carolina on top. So you had the 14-6 lead early. You end up going into the half 17-13, still up 4, still should feel positive, should be happy that that's the situation, that you're not down, that you have a lead. But again, like we said, you got to be careful with the Chiefs in the second half. And of course, that's how it went. The Chiefs ended up really killing this one game. Like I said, the 2 touchdowns for Tyreek Hill and just a clinic by Patrick Mahomes. Even though I think he took a couple sacks, Patrick Mahomes was really running around like crazy, doing kind of the video game-like plays that you come to expect from Patrick Mahomes. The throwing was on point. The deep passes, the ability to move up and down the field. The Chiefs just could not be denied in that second half. They would end up going up 33-24. There was a late touchdown by Carolina Panthers to make it closer, but that was it. 33-31. The Chiefs ending up on top. They are, I think, one of the best teams in this league. And give credit to Carolina Panthers. I think they are underrated. I think we should expect more from them now that they have the weapons like Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. Pair him up with Teddy Bridgewater, who has proven that he can be a solid quarterback in this league with great coaching from Matt Rule. I think the Carolina Panthers are a team that is going to continue to get better and continue to progress throughout the second half of this season. I think you can only expect good things from the Panthers. I was very impressed. I didn't think it'd be this close to the Chiefs, but I was very impressed by them. Their defense did the best they could. Again, it's just once the Chiefs get rolling, like you saw in the second half, there's just no stopping that train. It's too tough. The next game I wanted to go over was the Vikings versus Lions, and there's nothing special about the score. There's nothing really special about the game. What was special in this particular matchup is one player, and that one player is Dalvin freaking Cook. And we need to make sure we're mentioning Dalvin Cook's name at least once in the podcast because it'd be blasphemy to not be doing so. They ended up just dominating in the running game. Dalvin Cook, 22 carries for 206 yards with 2 touchdowns. One of the big touchdowns coming off a 70-yard run in the second half. He also had 2 receptions for 46 yards. Obviously, Kirk Cousins benefited greatly by having a weapon like Dalvin Cook back there. The defense had to respect the run. They were not able to stop him, allowing Cousins to really get much time as he wanted to pass the ball. Kirk Cousins would have something like 220 yards passing, which is pretty impressive, and 3 touchdowns. A lot of it from short field advantage, a lot of it from Dalvin Cook running up and down between the 20s to set them up for red zone throws. So you got to give it to him. Kirk Cousins doing a great job at least completing those passes when it needed to be done. But my Lord, Dalvin Cook was a man on a mission that game. They just couldn't. The Lions couldn't do anything about it. The Lions tried just to come back. Stafford, who was just coming off the COVID-19 reserve list, was able to play. They just did not look like a team that was going to stand up against the Vikings. Dalvin Cook was just a man on a mission, could not be stopped. It was absolutely incredible. And this is 2 weeks in a row now, folks. Dalvin Cook ran for 169 yards last week against the Packers with several yards sprinkled in there in the passing game. This week he has 252 all-purpose yards. It's just, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, the teams that you're playing know that in order to beat you, they need to stop Dalvin Cook. And even though they designed their entire playbook around trying to stop Dalvin Cook, that their defenses know that it's going to be handoff to Dalvin Cook at least 20 times a game, they are still not able to stop Dalvin Cook. It's incredible. Cannot believe it. The Vikings have obviously a great weapon there. We need to stop talking about Zeke Elliott. Saquon Barkley is obviously injured, so the attention needs to be on Dalvin Cook as the best running back in the league. I don't think there's anyone coming close to his production, anyone coming close to being the weapon that he is. It's just absolutely, it's amazing because he can run outside, he can run up the middle between the tackles. He is great in the screen game. He is just able to, just be unleashed outside, and he can catch the ball. It's absolutely amazing, and I really do think that we need to keep our eyes on Dalvin Cook. The player is a phenom right now, and I think we need to, the only other running back you can think right now of being the same kind of question as a weapon X in that running back position is obviously your Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara has had himself a hell of a season as well. But when it comes to a pure rushing running back, I think it all has to be going towards Dalvin Cook because he brings both the power and he brings both the elusiveness when he's outside. Derrick Henry was the king last year. I think Dalvin Cook is going to be the king this year, and the crown will be passing over to the man in purple up in Minnesota, Dalvin Cook. Just absolutely one of the most spectacular things to see after 2 weeks, just that pure rushing power. I know everyone loves a great offensive passing game, that it's entertaining, it's fun to watch, but to me, a gritty running game, there's nothing better than to see successful run after successful run. I think we need to continue to keep our eye on that. Dalvin Cook, he's going to be our rushing leader this year for sure. There's no doubt about it. It's going to have to be him. But absolutely an incredible game for the Vikings and Lions. Vikings end up winning 34-20. As I said, not much of a contest for the Lions, but had to bring it up because the rushing attack from the Vikings is unstoppable right now. And finally, we'll give a quick NFC East update. The New York Giants did take on the Washington football team this weekend. The Giants will come out on top 23-20. The big kind of awesome storyline from here is Alex Smith ended up having to come in, unfortunately for Kyle Allen, because Kyle Allen suffered a gruesome injury in his leg. More details of that will be coming out throughout the week, but it appeared very similar to the injury that Alex Smith took on to be a very serious leg fracture. We will see, how it develops. Maybe it's more dislocation, could be ligaments, but it seems to be pretty bad right now. We obviously, our prayers go out to him and hopefully for speedy recovery. But Alex Smith was one that had to step in, ironically, for the injured Kyle Allen, and he would go off with the yardage with 24 of 32 of 325 yards and one touchdown, with a big reception to Terry McLaurin for a touchdown deep down the field. Alex Smith looked great with the deep ball. The balls were perfect. His receiver that he seemed to be totally in tune with was Sims. They were unstoppable. It seemed to be up and down, especially between the 20s. Able to get this game close. They scored the touchdown because, don't forget, at half, the Giants were up 20-3, and they would end up giving up 17 unanswered points to the Washington football team with Alex Smith at the helm, leading them up and down. You thought, especially after that touchdown to Terry McLaurin, it seemed that it was all going in the direction of the Washington football team. The Giants ended up tackling on a field goal. It's 23-20, but then when Alex Smith comes down, interception. The ball gets back to the Giants. They get a turn. The Washington football team defense gets a turnover by strip sacking Daniel Jones. it goes back to the Washington football team. Alex Smith throws another turnover. So unfortunately, to end the game, he had 2 picks, bringing his total turnovers to 3 interceptions in that game. I thought that obviously Alex Smith would be a little more careful with the ball, but granted, he's been out for a long time. I think what should be celebrated is just the fact that he's on the field, that he threw for over 300 yards, that he was able to put his team into a position to win. That's amazing in my mind. I think if you're the Washington football team fan base, you want Alex Smith back in it. He's a veteran who is controlled, who is able to at least lead teams to be careful with it. We knew this game was going to be a bit of an aberration with the sense of how many turnovers there are for Alex Smith. He needs to get back into football shape, into football mindset. So I'm not going to hold it against the guy that if he's going to have turnovers early in this game. But it was incredible to see him out there taking hits, being able to deliver the ball, not being afraid, being able to move in the pocket without looking hobbled. Absolutely amazing, especially because this is a guy that almost lost his leg to the injury. It was infected. They had to do incredible surgery. He had to do years of rehab. The fact that he's on an NFL team, on a roster, on the field, performing at a high level, it's nothing short of a miracle. It's absolutely incredible. Kudos to Alex Smith. Kudos to his family that was able to enjoy that. We loved it as fans to be able to see that happen. From the NFC East, there's not much good going on considering the Giants won this game and got only their 2nd win of the season. So for us, we will take any type of story that we can get out of the NFC East, and this one was a beautiful one to Alex Smith, really coming through for his team, and just incredible to see that they were able to get this done with a man who was out for years in the NFL after a horrendous and scary injury. So great job to Alex Smith and the Washington football team. Fortunately, a loss, but great to see it coming through there. I will note Daniel Jones, 23 of 34, 212 yards and 1 touchdown. Got enough to get this win, but the Giants are still, the Giants and the Washington football team, with all the storylines around it, still a weak football team. The NFC East is still terrible, and the fact that the Cowboys give up a lead and the Steelers come through winning that one as well is not the thing we're going to go into detail on, but the Cowboys did look like the Cowboys late in the game, not able to get it done. The top of the leaderboard right now is the 3-4-1 Eagles. So not much to speak of for the NFC East, but felt it was worth making a note there about the other rivals in that division, so we kind of discussed it further. Another game we're not going to go into a lot of detail on, but it's worth mentioning. The big matchup that everyone was excited for was a Sunday night game between the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another matchup of Tom Brady versus Drew Brees. The Saints got away with it in week 1, winning that game against them. You knew on the Buccaneers side, you now had Antonio Brown available for the Buccaneers. He caught some passes. Chris Godwin, coming off a broken finger, was also in the game. So you had a wide receiver core of Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. You knew they had Gronkowski in the tight end and Ronald Jones II in the backfield of Peyton Barber. You thought that this was going to be an offensive showdown. It was going to be a shootout throughout the entire match between the two teams. Obviously, the Saints have been throwing up crazy numbers, but you were like, is Drew Brees going to be able to do it? He's been on and off throughout the weeks, but obviously you figured Tom Brady was going to come out on top of this one, but it was completely different once the kickoff happened. Once this game got started, it was clear that the Saints were the better team. They destroyed Tom Brady in that offense. They didn't allow him to get comfortable. They didn't allow him to set. You saw Tom Brady make mistakes. You saw him throw across his body, not get rid of the ball. Everything that you expect Tom Brady to do normally, get rid of the ball quickly, be smart with it, not get turnovers. That didn't happen. It was an absolute beatdown. I think it was ended up being 31-34 to 3. For a long time into the fourth quarter, the Buccaneers had no points. I think the time I looked away from the game was 31-0 with the Saints on top. That was a shocker. That was a huge shock. I think most of us expected it to be a competitive game. It was not. The Saints clearly right now are the best team in the NFC South. You can't change my mind until obviously the Buccaneers are able to beat the tough competition. They have shown the Buccaneers throughout the last 2 weeks that they are obviously one of the top teams in this league. But if they are not able to take out their division rivals and take them out handedly right now, they are not going to be the favorites to the Super Bowl. That was amazing to see the Saints just come out and reassert themselves and say, I'm sorry, who was the Kings of the NFC South? Oh, right, we are. We're the ones that have been leading for the last few years. Yeah, sure, the Buccaneers have a nice new shiny toy with Tom Brady and all these wide receivers, but they are still not the best team, the most complete team in this division. And the Saints continue to show why they are the best. it was absolutely incredible. Love that matchup. I think the Panthers are closer to being tied up with the Saints right now than the Buccaneers after watching last night. So the Buccaneers need to get their shit together. Tom Brady, I know, will not be that bad, but that was the worst I've seen of Tom Brady in a long time. So yeah, there's that. I thought that was going to be a great game. I assumed we were going to have a shootout. I thought there'd be so many touchdowns scored on both sides of the ball, but it just was not happening. And also, talk about the Buccaneers defense has been rated one of the tops in the league right now, giving up just so many points to the Saints. They couldn't stop them at all. I mean, Drew Brees had his way. Taysom Hill, again, had his way. It was just, incredible play after incredible play for the Saints and just disappointment across the board for the Buccaneers. I mean, what happened there? It was abysmal watching that game. I mean, the Buccaneers just could not get anything going. It was really disappointing. And the fact they also, I think, got on downs in the red zone, like a few yards from the goal line. I mean, I don't know what happened to that team. I know Bruce Arians will not stand for that. He's got to get that back together, figure that shit out. But that was a brutal game to watch in the end there. You felt bad for them. But look, the Buccaneers are still a good team. They still have a lot of time to correct what just happened last night. We're going to the second half of the season, so I expect the Buccaneers to figure their shit out, obviously. Moving on to the NBA, it looks like we have now a decision of when the season will start, the new season for 2020 to 21 season. The NBA Players Association and their board representatives voted last Thursday night to approve a plan to start the new season on December 22nd, so before Christmas Day. That does not give a lot of time for these players to recover. It does not give a lot of time for them to get back into training camp and to get better for the season. But it is what they agreed on. It's something they allow it. It is with a shortened season of 72 games, and the training camp will start on December 1st. I think it's impressive that they got something agreed upon. I think it's impressive that we will see a season in the same year that everything else was finished a few months ago. I thought this would maybe move into January, February, but it looks like the NBA wants to get it done. They want to get back on track to have kind of a regular schedule so that the 21-22 season starts at the right time and ends at the right time. So we'll see how it kind of continues to unfold, but there is still a lot of questions. They have agreed on the date. They've agreed on the start camp. The other thing they have agreed on is obviously opening a free agency right around time that the free draft will start. So I think it's something like November 18th. So still, that at least that's going on. Players obviously want to be able to get to their new team quickly. They want to get that done now so that they can get ready for the training camp on December 1st so that everyone is able to report and that you have a full team together. And with the short amount of time you have till the season starts, be able to get some type of, cohesiveness amongst all the units out there. So that is underway. The main questions that are still arise is going to be financially. How is it going to look for the contracts, the new collective bargaining agreement? How are they going to be able to decide based on the losses from the coronavirus that we saw in the earlier season? How is that going to impact the players' salaries? It appears right now that players will probably see a higher escrow withholding on their salaries to make up for those losses. Obviously trying to, all the stuff they normally would make off of the, ticket sales, everything that the teams and those bonuses, all that being withheld. And hopefully, that's the NBA's point out. They're not trying to do that all in one fell swoop, not trying to withhold all that this year, but withhold it over several years. I think the players are obviously going to agree to that because they know that there was not going to be some way they weren't going to see some losses. I mean, the teams are, the owners are, the coaches are, the players are going to see some losses in that as well. They're still getting their base salary, so not much to complain about. But overall, they will see at least some withholding of their salary from the losses that the NBA incurred by trying to make this happen. I do believe that obviously, I think all the players will agree to everything happening here. They are basically the big spokespersons like your LeBron James, your, James Harden, your other players, Kevin Durant, are all on board to get this thing started. So we'll hopefully see this season start on time. Excited to just have some NBA news. Excited to know that the NBA will happen, that we're going to have at least some NBA excitement shortly to be able to study, to be talking about. especially with free agency going to be coming just around the corner. I'll be really excited to see how the teams develop and build themselves for this new season. And 72 games, that's something that we've talked about, shortening the season in the NBA. It doesn't make sense. It'll be nice to see how it all unfolds now that you need the special circumstances to make it happen. They didn't really want to do shortened season, obviously, the NBA, but, it makes sense, especially because the last season just ended. So it's fair to everyone to try and give them some time to recover and get this going. But, I'm excited to see. Maybe if we see if it works, that the 72-game season will become the norm. I think that's something that needs to be discussed. I don't think we need all these games. But, the NBA is always going to want to make more money. So if the players can, the players get more athletic every year, they're going to try and continue to make them play longer. So we'll see how that all unfolds. But, I'm excited for a 72-game season. So we'll see how that goes. But very pumped to get this going. I miss basketball. We have football in full swing, but I would love to get basketball going. Normally, we'd have the start of the seasons happening, so I'm excited for this to get underway and really just finally get the tip-off happening for the NBA season. I cannot wait. Hopefully, the Sixers will be a better team then and will be competitive and so on and so forth. But good to hear that they have agreed to a plan. Thought this would be dragged out for a while, but looks like we will have basketball soon. And with that, folks, we are going to now close up the show for episode 57 of the ChadBurn Show. Thank you again for joining me. I know it's kind of an episode during a momentous last week with the election finally finishing. We know the NBA is coming up soon, a big week 9 in the NFL. Just a lot going on. So it's fun to get back on the mic and be able to discuss this and talk about it out there, all of you. Thank you, guys. Continue to show your support and listening into the show. It really helps us continue to keep this going and to continue to try and give you good content. I love being able to create content. Love to be on here to be able to discuss the big things in sports, especially in football and basketball. And now with the basketball season coming, we're going to have more content to discuss. So it is great. Continue to keep checking back in, check out the episode, check out our posts on Instagram, hitting us up if you have any questions or want to have things discussed in the show. But as always, we love hearing from you. We really do appreciate your support. Thank you for making the ChadBurn Show possible. And until next time, have a good evening and good night. Thank you for listening to the ChadBurn Show. Remember to check out all new episodes every Monday at 7 p.m. on Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and all major platforms where you listen to your podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with me and want to send in your questions or requests for topics to discuss in the show, you can email chadburn.show@gmail.com. All episodes have video recorded, which is then posted to our YouTube channel, The ChadBurn Show. Be sure to subscribe to us where you get your podcast or on our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all our new content. You can also follow the show on Instagram at ChadBurn Show and on Facebook, The ChadBurn Show, to see clips from previously recorded episodes and information on all upcoming shows.